So, 2019, where to begin? Honestly, guys, thank you so much, first of all, to tuning into this video, to this podcast. If you're watching it on YouTube or listening to it on Spotify, thank you so much. I appreciate you guys' support throughout this whole journey of me starting this podcast over a year ago, but really mainly getting serious about it this year. I just want to share a little bit of my heart, a little bit of my story for everybody else behind the lens. Anybody else who kind of knows me, doesn't know me too well, everything about me. The reason that I titled the video 2019 was the worst year of my life, but ... is because if I'm being honest, it's actually really true. On paper, if you saw my life in 2019, it's not something that people would envy. It's not even something that I think people would want to go through. But the reality is that it's what I'm living. It's what I lived. It's what I'm currently living. It's what I've overcome. It's the blows that I've taken. And so I kind of want to let you guys into a little bit of all of that. To kind of preface everything, or preface or preface. I don't know how you guys say that. I typically say preface, but to do that, to kind of set it all up for you guys, just being a little bit more vulnerable about myself. I struggle with a sex addiction, and I know there's probably a lot of people that hear that and they're like, "Oh yeah, we all struggle with sex addictions. It's a cop out." But no, I really did for the longest time, and I hate saying that I struggle with a sex addiction because if I'm being honest, it's not that I struggle with a sex addiction. It's that I've always struggled with feeling valuable and feeling validated and dealing with loneliness and abandonment issues. So I would say that I struggle with those, and that it manifests itself in sexual addiction. And the reason that I say that is because there's so much in my life that is just cloudy. And for anybody out there that deals with an addiction, doesn't even have to be a sex addiction. It can be, with alcohol, drugs, work, literally anything, any kind of addiction out there, even just food. It's not really about the addiction. It's more about the root that's causing the addiction that really makes you feel clouded. So anybody who deals with an addiction can probably relate with this, in the fact that you're very cloudy all the time. You're not always thinking straight, and not even that you're thinking straight, but you're not always in the moments. You're not always present. You're just kind of walking day by day, not like a zombie, but kind of like a zombie, because you don't really know exactly what you're doing, why you're doing it. It's just kind of what happens. And in those moments, for example, for me, when I didn't feel valuable, when I didn't feel validated, when I felt lonely, when I felt abandoned, when I felt worthless, I would run to sex, and I would use women for those moments to feel better about myself. And it sounds terrible, and I hate talking about it in that way, but I also don't mind it because it's not who I am anymore. It's been a hard journey, but I definitely feel like I've come a long way. And I'll never say that I'm fully freed from sex addiction, because I never want to put my guard down. I always want to stand on guard, especially, because life is a long life, and at any given moment you could fall not even to the same addiction, but to a new addiction. And so I always want to stand on guard, but it's very cloudy most of my life, and most of the errors that I made. And I remember even the other day, and sorry guys, I'm kind of going to be a little bit all over the place, just because it's a lot to unpack and a lot to put into 30 to 50 minutes worth. So I'm gonna do the best that I can. So just roll with me. Life was really, really cloudy for a long time. And I think it was because I was so focused on me and how I felt, and how I wasn't valued, or how I was being left out in certain things, or how, my insecurities would just take over. And I would just look for anything to be able to fill that void. And honestly, sex was an easy way to do it. It was an easy way because I'm very charismatic, and it was never a problem meeting women. And so I carried on through those acts for a long time. And unfortunately, this will kind of lead into 2019, how this was the worst year of my life. Unfortunately, I let that bleed over into my marriage. For a lot of people that say, once I'm married, I'm not going to struggle with that issue anymore. I'm not going to struggle with pornography. I'm not going to struggle with lust. I'm not going to struggle from seeking attention from other women. That is a lie, bro, and you are lying to yourself, and you probably don't even know it, but I'm here to tell you right now that is a lie, because humans, we are creatures of habit. What that means is that anything that you do, you create a habit in. When you wake up, what's the first thing that you do? You pick up your phone, you probably get on social media. You are creating a habit, which is why you do it every day now without even thinking about it. Same thing with sex addictions or any other addiction. You make it into a habit. So next thing you know, you've created these patterns in your brain to where now you're literally going to that thing that you're fiending on, or however you say it. You're literally running to that thing automatically, instantaneously, because that's how you've wired yourself, because you're a creature of habit. Same thing with how you deal with issues. If you never talk about them, if you just force them down and compress them in there and hide them, you're going to keep doing that later on. So I unfortunately brought that into my marriage. I was still very hurt. Just some things in my life had happened that had caused a lot of hurt in me to make me feel not valued. And then in those moments where my wife did not make me feel valuable, and maybe disrespected me publicly, talked bad about me or anything like that, I would lash out in those ways, or want to lash out in those ways. And unfortunately, I ended up really, really hurting her. So leading up to 2019, our marriage, I would say that it was good. It was just you have the normal issues that you have every day in marriage. But I think there was still a lot of pain there that I had obviously caused in the past that I thought we had moved past, because I had put in steps to really heal and really better myself. I remember once just having a conversation with her. I just broke down in our bed and I just told her things that I had never told anybody before. Really bad things that, I think for any spouse or any significant other, it would be hard to hear those things. And just the thought processes that I had, and it was stuff that I didn't want to deal with anymore, and that I was really hurting through. And I remember she hugged me, and she just loved on me, and she said that she was there for me, and that we were going to get through it, and that I was going to get through it. And that's when really my journey of overcoming everything really started. So I started digging in deep, man. And by digging in deep, what that looks like is I got into a group, I got into counseling, I got into mentorships, I got into reading the word and spending time with God and trying to get invested, all of that good stuff. And it really helped a lot. I was really getting a lot of freedom in those areas. But come 2019, those pains were still there. So 2019 starts, and I'll never forget March 5th, my wife decided to leave, and it came as a shock because 2 days prior to that, we were having a blast, joking around at the house, watching movies all day, cuddling, being intimate with each other like if nothing was even wrong. I remember multiple times checking in on her to see if everything was good, because it was one of those things that I was kind of trying to implement, just to create conversation and really enhance her communication. And she ended up leaving, and I'm not really going to get into all of that, just because this isn't a video to try and justify me or justify her or put the blame anywhere else. This is a video about 2019 and about how it affected me in a really good way. But she ended up leaving, and I don't hold it against her. I put her through a lot. So at the end of the day, I completely understand, take full responsibility for everything. But it still came as a shock to me in that moment. And if you guys don't know, we have a little girl together. I'll throw up a picture of her. Her name's Tati. She just turned 8. And I've always been a family guy, man. Like my dream job has always been to be a dad and to be a husband. And so when I lost my family, it kind of like, it really broke me in a way that I had never been broken before. It was literally the worst pain that I've ever felt. And when that happened, to my surprise, I did not run to women. It wasn't my first reaction. And I think a lot of that honestly was because when she left, she was still coming around for about a month. She left and then she would come and visit. We would have really, really good talks. We'd really try and like work through some stuff, and we'd, end up, having sex because we're married and we loved each other. And so I still had those parts of her. I was still getting validation and value from her. So I thought that I was like, man, I'm good. Well, after that month of her coming around, she ends up, completely ignoring me and just cutting me off again. It almost felt out of nowhere. But this time it felt like I really lost her for good, and I wasn't getting any more validation from her. And so what ended up happening was I ended up running back and failing in that area again. And I remember calling all 3 of our pastors, Pastor Dustin Keon and one of my good friends, Pastor Cameron, and just really breaking down and just being so angry because selfishly I felt betrayed, because I had trusted this person with this issue, and they knew the root of what caused it, and everything that this situation caused those issues to arise again. And so I was like, in my mind, again, very selfish. I was in a terrible place at this point, in a lot of pain. I was just thinking, how could she do this to me? She made me fall back into this. She made me run back into this. And I remember calling them, and I had no reason to really call them because I didn't really have anything to gain out of it. But I remember just telling them I want to be a man of character and a man of integrity, and I want to do it for me. Like I don't want to be free from that just for my wife or for my little girl. I want to be free for me, because the feeling and the shame that comes with a sexual addiction, I can't speak to all those other addictions, but I know that for me specifically, everything that I've witnessed with anyone that deals with sexual addiction, and if you're on the other side of this lens and you're listening to this, you can probably relate, is that you feel a lot more shame because no one treats it like they do any other addiction. Someone says an alcoholic, everyone's there to help. Someone says you have a sexual addiction, you're a pervert, you're a pig. And so it's a little bit different. So you can't really go out and just tell everyone about it and talk to everyone about it, which is why this is kind of a big deal for me. But honestly, it's because I'm kind of at a point where I don't really care what people think about me, because at the end of the day, God bless Gary Vee. If you don't follow Gary Vee, you should. But at the end of the day, their opinions of me aren't going to affect my lifestyle, and I will not let them affect my lifestyle, and they're not going to change who I am. And just like it's not doing that for me, that's how it should be for you guys if you feel that way. Don't let the opinions of anybody else, they don't know what you're walking through. They don't know what's going on in your mind, in your heart. If they would take a second to really try and dig down with you, it may be a different story, but not everyone's going to do that, and it's not their job to do that. So don't put that on them. That's something that I'm going to hit on here in a little bit also. So I end up losing my family. I'm going through the worst time ever because of this, right? At this moment, I have my own trucking business that I started about 3 years ago, roughly. Making pretty darn good money, anywhere from $4,000 to $8,000 a week. I was bringing in. I was able to, make it so my wife didn't have to work and really be able to invest into her dream and make her dreams come true and just really pursue what she wanted to. Put our daughter in a private school. I was doing all of these things. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. My dad's a trucker, so I was like, naturally, I guess it's just going to come to me that I'm going to be a trucker. So I started doing that in a completely different industry than what he's doing. And so I really had to build it from the ground up, and I had a lot of pride in what I built. I had 2 dump trucks that were mine, but I had those 2 dump trucks working, and then I had about anywhere from 8 to 10 other trucks that I had hauling for me at other jobs every single day, that I would be pocketing anywhere from 10 to 15 bucks an hour every truck, and they'd work about 10 to 12 hours. So there was days where honestly I didn't even have to go to work. I would just sit at home, but I built it to that point, and I was super proud of that. Now, all that to say, after my wife left and I lost my family, I go to work, and I'm going to work, just another normal day. I'm already walking through all this. I'm really trying to spend time with the Lord again, really get as close as I can to him, hold on to him for dear life. And I get pulled over by a state trooper. Now, if you have a commercial vehicle, you can get pulled over for no reason whatsoever, just so that they can do an inspection on your truck to make sure that you're safe. Because if your brakes are out, you got oil on your brakes, anything like that, it's a hazard. You could end up killing someone. So it's very standard that you end up getting pulled over for an inspection. I get pulled over for an inspection. This dude comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, bro, you don't have a CDL. You're not allowed to drive this truck." And I'm thinking, what do you mean I don't have a CDL, bro? Like, look at it. It's on my driver's license. It's a CDL. And he's like, "It expired in August." And I just started thinking, what? How could that even happen? Like, I've been pulled over easily 6 to 10 times from August to this point, that no state trooper had told me that my CDL had been expired. So he tells me, pull the truck right over there, have someone come pick you up and take the truck that has a CDL. So I was like, okay. I pull the truck over, and I was heading to a job in the morning, and I just remember parking the truck. I break out into tears, and my prayer is, "God, what the F?" Obviously not going to say the word, but in that moment I said it, and I said it with a lot of passion. I was like, "You see everything that I'm going through? This is the one thing that I have to hold on to. Like, why are you letting this happen?" As soon as I said those words, he took me back. It took my mind immediately back to when I first was going to start the business. I've always had a call in my life to do ministry and to be a pastor and to preach the word. And I've ran away from it for quite a while. So I remember specifically choosing to start a business instead of pursuing what I know I'm supposed to pursue, my purpose. And I remember asking God, I was like, "God, like, I got a family now, man. Like, please, like, if you'll bless me, just give me 2 to 3 good years, like, and then I'll go back and I'll do what you want me to do." And I didn't realize that August, it was time's up. It was literally time's up. And God is so good that he even gave me a grace period into like April of the next year to still like make things happen. So literally, I had an expired CDL in August, but I was able to work all the way into April with an expired CDL, with state troopers pulling me over, checking all of my information, and not once telling me that I had an expired CDL, which means really I was working illegally for quite a while. That happens, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. Like, he reminds me of that, and immediately I break out into tears, and I'm like, okay, man, like, okay, like, let's do it. Whatever you want me to do. Other things start happening. Trucks that were always super loyal, not showing up to work. Literally trucks that aren't my trucks, right? My other driver ends up wrecking one of my trucks, so I end up firing him. All these other trucks literally not showing up for work, showing up super late, leaving early, making me look bad in front of all of these clients. So I end up having to like lose all of these clients, and literally all of my clients, just one by one, they just start dropping, literally. And so now I'm like, okay, I have no source of income anymore. Thankfully, I had some money saved up, and I was like, what am I going to do? So now I am faced with not just losing my family and being brokenhearted over that, but the other thing that I really prided myself on, which was my business. I end up losing that, and God was the one that made that specific move. And so I end up going through all of this, and a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people think that, I still had everything like really well together, and it's just because I'm really good at putting a smile on my face. And honestly, like, in life, you're gonna take hits, but if every hit you take, you let it take the wind out of you, you're not gonna get anywhere in life. So I've literally kind of trained myself to, like, okay, like, what's going on, and so I walked through those two specific things badly, really, really badly. And by badly, I mean like in pain. I was still doing the best that I could in those moments. Obviously, I had moments of pain and moments of vulnerability where I'd fail and come up short, but that's what the grace of God is there for. And every single time he ended up being there for me, like in those moments. So these two things happen towards the beginning of 2019. I go without a job for about 3 months, and I start getting very creative. I'm like, okay, you know what? I want to start making videos. I love making videos. I love helping people. I believe in people's businesses. I believe in people. I feel like I'm really good at catching somebody's vision and then displaying it. So I'm like, I want to do that for people. So I start making videos for money. Little did I know, I started making my own like little social media, like custom content business. And I just start popping out videos, and God starts providing opportunities in those areas. And I tell God, I'm like, God, I really want a job in some sort of ministry. Like, I want to get back into the church. End up getting a phone call from my buddy, or a text. He's like, hey bro, you still looking for work? I'm like, yes. Really desperately. God ends up bringing me the perfect job where now I get to meet with pastors and people from the church every single day and find solutions to their current system to really enhance, not just in their donations, but in ways that they can reach people. And so I get to do something that I love, and God opened that door, and that would have never happened if he would have never closed that other door. Now, all of that to say, those are some of the greatest pains that I went through in 2019. Obviously, there's everyday stuff also, but these are the two things that I felt just really crippled me. And the way I like to think of it is, a lot of you guys know, I used to train Muay Thai. And so Muay Thai is a martial arts. It's kickboxing. It's very, very brutal. It's fist, elbows, knees, and legs, like kicks. And there is no ground game. It's literally, you beat each other up. If you fall, you get back up and you keep going. And I remember when I was training, there was this one specific moment when we were sparring, and my boy Billy Jack, this big teddy bear of a man, just completely covered in tattoos, who's got a dope tattoo shop up in Deep Ellum, and he's got another, like, 2 other locations. Artistic Encounter, you guys check him out. He does good work. But he's a southpaw, which means he's an opposite stance from me, right? So I'm right here, and I go to punch him. I throw a right, and I throw it, and as I throw it, I expose this whole part of my body, and his power kick is on this side of my body. So when I throw it, he throws a kick and lands a perfect liver shot. Now, I had not been dropped before. I would take some beatings, because before you can beat people up, you got to get beat up. And so I would take some beatings, but I would never really like get dropped. But this time, the pain that I felt from that liver kick, it shut my body down. Like when I tell you that I couldn't breathe. When I tell you that it felt like somebody reached into my spine and grabbed it and just twisted it like that, which made my body curl up. It literally felt like that, and it felt like every nerve in my body wanted to shoot out of my body. It felt like my eyes wanted to come out of my skull. It was the worst pain in the world. And I remember just falling, and I'm just like, ugh, literally just like, oh. And then Billy Jack just comes over, and he's like, chill. He's like, here, just lay back. And I'm like, bro, obviously I didn't say it, but I'm like, bro, I can't lay back, dude. Like, I'm literally in a ball, like rolling around, like in pain. Literally thought I was going to die or something. I thought something was severely wrong. So he shakes my legs, tells me to take a deep breath. Coach comes over there. He says, hey, man, are you good? And I'm like, yeah, man, I think so. He's like, all right, finish the rounds. I end up sparring for the rest of the night. After I experienced the worst pain that I had ever felt physically in my life. 2019 was a lot like that. These were my liver shots. These were literally my liver shots of the year. I got dropped. I got the wind knocked out of me. I felt pain that I had never felt before. I had gone to places in my mind that I had never gone before. Suicidal thoughts, depression, all of that stuff. And in the middle of that, God literally gave me the strength to get back up and finish the rounds. And this is where it gets really good, because only God can do what he did. He began to open doors again in ministry, and again also like in that job. Man, sorry guys, I didn't think I was going to get emotional because I've walked through it. I've talked about it multiple times with people, but he presented the right jobs. He brought the right people, and it was one of the hardest journeys that I've ever taken, but it was so worth it. And the reason I say that is because when everything happened, obviously people wanted to be there for me, and I love them and I appreciate them for that. Obviously they couldn't be there for me like the way I wanted them to be there for me. I probably ended up getting, probably like a good 10 text messages from people. And then after that, people get busy with their life and they keep on going. And now you're not their main focus. You're an afterthought. You're like, okay, we're praying for you. But that's all you get really is, okay, we're praying for you. And that's fine. I don't hold that against anybody. I think I was supposed to go through that specifically for one reason. And I remember going to a men's conference at our church, and this dude that had no idea what I was going through, he comes up to me during an altar call. Altar call is once the preacher does his thing, and then you go and you respond to like the message, and they pray for you. So I go up there. This guy comes up to me and he says, "Hey man, I feel like God has a word for you. I feel like he wants me to tell you something." I'm like, "Okay, give it to me." And he just said, "I feel like he's saying this is between you and him. It's only you and him, and he wants it to be you and him, and he's going to be the one that gets you through it." At that moment, that dude didn't know that, but that hit me big time because I had been reaching out to people, trying to like if I started struggling and wanted to run back to sex, I would text my pastors and I'd be like, "Guys, I'm really struggling." And then, again, I do not hold this against anybody. They would just get busy and I wouldn't get a response for like 4 or 5 hours. By that point, it's too late. But in those moments, I ended up running to God because I really didn't want to run back to those other things. So that word, it hit big time because in the moments where you feel like, okay, maybe people don't have my back, and I get it because I've hurt them before too, so I wouldn't really have my back either. Those moments when you're thinking that, he came in and he said, no. I am doing this on purpose. I am isolating you because it's going to be me and you. And when I got that word, it changed everything because I knew that was happening for a specific reason. And so that led me to a real deep relationship with God where honestly, I didn't even want to hang out with people, not in a depressed way, but I would so much rather be at home reading my Bible, listening to a message and having some worship music going than have people come over and watch a movie with me just to distract me from what I'm going through. I would rather just deal with it head on and spend time with God and feel 10 times better and 10 times lighter afterwards. And so that's what I did. And that's what really moved me. That's what really helped me get through everything that I got through and gave me the willpower to do that. So like the sexual addiction thing, man, like it wasn't even a focus anymore. It was just like, just spending time with God became my focus because I wanted to. And little by little, he just started taking things away. Obviously, I'm not perfect. I've messed up. I'm going to mess up. It's going to be a constant battle probably for the rest of my life. And I get that. But the battle will get easier. And it has gotten easier. And in those moments, just me and God alone is where, like, I've always known about God's forgiveness. I've always known about his grace. I've always known all these things in my head. And I've always seen him as my savior and I've always seen him as my Lord, but I've never really felt him like a father. And I never really felt him like my best friend. And in 2019, though it was the worst year of my life, it was the best year of my life because I got literally the best friend that anybody could ask for, and it was in God. And so This is the guy that I could talk to about anything. This is the guy that I could cry to about everything. Whenever anything happened between my wife that really caused pain in me, I would just break down with him. And then afterwards, it would be like, dust yourself off, bro, and keep going. And I'd be good. And it was because I was with him and I was going towards him. And I think a lot of the times what we do, and I know this isn't just me, and hopefully this encourages you, but one of the things that I learned in 2019 is that one of the things that we do is that we actually make our community our God instead of making our priority our community with God. What that means is community with God has to come before your community. It has to come before the people around you. Like, I'm not saying don't spend time in community. Please hear my heart on this. But if you don't take your issue first to God, then you're going to go and you're going to take it to a community. And when that community isn't there for you, because they won't be there for you every single time, then you're going to feel betrayed. You're going to feel left out. You're going to feel lonely. You're going to feel unvalued. You're going to feel like you're just another person. And then you're going to feel unwanted. And guess what that's going to do? It's going to take you into a whirlwind and throw you back into whatever addiction or whatever struggle you're trying to overcome. And that is one of the main things I learned is community with God has got to be before your community. So anything I went through, I took it to God first. Also, by the way, guys, this really helps out with gossip, to stop gossip, because if you would deal with an offense that you chose to take on from something that somebody else did, if you would take that to God first and be real with him, then you would get a lot more clarity in that prayer time or that time with him over that situation, and there would be no need to go and talk about it with somebody else. And then now you're not like washing all these people with dirt and throwing dirt on anybody else. Now it's like when you talk about it, you can talk more about what God did in you than what that person did to you. So that's one of the things that I learned in 2019. Another thing that I learned in 2019 is that you're actually stronger than you think you are, and you have more courage than you think you have. And that was actually a word that was given to me by my boy Josiah, Church 1132 intern. I went to one of their intern prayers in the morning, and he came up to me. He didn't even know me, obviously didn't know what I was going through either. And he was like, man, I just feel like God wants you to know that you're stronger than you think you are, and you got more courage than you think you have. And in those moments is some of the moments that I was feeling the most weak, and that just stuck with me. And I just always tell myself that I have more strength than I think I have, and I have more courage than I think I have, and I just walk in that. So for you guys, if you really feel like you're about to lose whatever battle it is that you're facing, do not give up. You're stronger than you think you are, and you're more courageous than you think you are. Take a chance on yourself. Literally, you are not going to regret it. Another thing I learned is that there's two reasons why your life falls apart. Reason number one is because the enemy or the devil is terrified of what you can accomplish. Reason number two, God wants to get your full attention. For me, these things were very, very real. I know that my voice carries a lot of power. I know that I carry a lot of anointing. I know that I have influence. God has blessed me with that, and I thank him for that, and I have taken that for granted, and I never will again. Or in Jesus' name, I will not take that in granted again. But the enemy is going to try and bring things at you to tear it apart, because if he can get you distracted from your purpose, like he did me, he will take you down this whirlwind of pain where now all you end up doing is acting out in a place of pain and hurting other people and hurting people over people over people. And are you going to hurt people? Yes. Regardless of how good you are, regardless of how pure you're walking, regardless of how strong you're walking, you are going to hurt people. It's just going to happen. You're a human. Don't beat yourself up about it. But it changes. It's a lot more different than if you're just focused on the pain that you're going through. He wants to give you that pain. If I would have focused on that liver shot, I would have never gone back to that gym, and I never would have became I say a good fighter, but in what terms? Not pro fighter or anything like that. But I would have never been the guy that gets to like teach the people that are coming to try out the gym how to throw specific techniques and work with them. I never would have been the guy that gets invited to multiple fight camps to train up our fighters in the gym and spar with them, because I was one of the good guys that could spar with them. I would have never became that guy. I would have never learned the lessons that I learned if I would have focused on that liver shot and never got up again. That's what the enemy wants to do. He wants you to focus on your liver shot, and he wants you to never try again. Do not do that. I am telling you that right now. The second reason is God wants to get your full attention. At the end of the day, God will do whatever he has to do to get all of you. And that may sound selfish on his end, but it's really not, because if he gets all of you, that really means that you get all of him. And when you get all of him, your life completely begins to change. I started getting parts of God that I had never had before when I started giving him parts that I had never given him before. He is drawn to vulnerability. He is drawn to humility. He is drawn to brokenness. So every single day I try and choose to be broken. Even if I'm doing good, I try and choose to be broken, because without him, I cannot do it. And he will do whatever he needs to do to get your full attention. There are specific things that he will take out of your life just to get your attention, because maybe you're giving more attention to that relationship. Maybe you're giving more attention to that business like I was given than you are to him. Maybe he's really trying to captivate your heart. And if you're as stubborn as I am, the only way that he's going to be able to do that is to start taking things away, because that's how he's going to grab your attention, because that's how he got mine at the end of the day. Another thing sorry guys, I kind of put a little bit of notes of like what I learned in 2019. That way I didn't forget them, and things that I just really, really want to make sure that I hit. Another thing that I learned in 2019 is that God will get the purest part of your heart through the hardest times of your life. So if you went in 2019 or in 2020, if you go through anything hard, the hardest thing that you've gone through in the year, because you're going to face something in those moments, if you go to God, he will get the most pure part of your heart, because that is where you become the most broken and the most vulnerable. And you just got to let yourself be that with him. And when you do that, I'm telling you, the reward that comes with it, it's huge. There's no amount of words that I can put with it. Honestly, you just have to experience it for yourself. And God is a real God, but he can only be real when you're real at the end of the day. And I'm sorry I'm saying so real, but this is the Be Real podcast, so just get over it. God's promises to you are meant to drive you to him and not to the promise. The reason I say that is because God has given me a lot of promises, but every time that he gave me a promise, even with my marriage, he had promised me that he was going to bring it back, right? And I would focus so much on the promise that when the promise or the situation didn't look like the promise, I would get ticked off, and then you go back into your cycles again because you're disappointed one more time. God showed me that when he gives you a promise, it's meant to drive you to him, because when he gives you a promise, it's essentially him saying, like, son, I got you. Like, this is what's going to happen, and I'm going to make it happen. Now, just spend time with me. Just literally, just spend time with me and get to know me, because if you get to know God, your perspective of him gets bigger. And how can you trust somebody that you don't know? You can't. But, sorry, I was drinking some soda. But if you actually give him time, and you give him vulnerability, and you give him those sensitive parts in your life, then he will actually give you something in return, believe it or not. I know that sounds crazy, but that's the way it works. Another thing that I learned in 2019 is that he is working on your purpose harder than you could possibly ever work on your purpose. At the end of the day, God knows your mess ups. He knows what you're going to do. He knows where you're going to fail. He knew where I was going to fail. And he set things in motion to prepare it so that once I overcame those things, they would hit. So if right now you're going through some stuff and it doesn't look like what you envisioned it doesn't look like what God gave you a vision of, it doesn't look like what you see your future looking as, don't worry about it. God's working way harder on the other end than you could possibly do on your own. The reason I say that specific fact is because ministry has always been a huge part of my life. I've always wanted to do ministry. I just love people, man. I love people. That's why I started this podcast, because everybody has a story and I just want to hear it, and I want other people to hear it, and I want those people to feel heard, and I want their story to like touch other people as well and encourage other people, and I want to be able to just encourage them just a little bit. That's how much I love people. That's why I do what I do. And so the reason that I say that God's working harder on your purpose than you are is because all of this went down, and he started opening up doors in ministry for me again. I had people calling me to meet up with me to like talk and to help them through things and minister to them that I had no idea how they even really knew about me or anything like that, or even that they had any sort of respect towards me. And I got to help people walk through specific things that honestly I didn't even feel qualified to help them through, because I was in the middle of walking through all my stuff, and none of these people had any idea of what I was going through. So literally, I remember getting text messages and I didn't want to go. I just remember being at home. I'm like, dude, I don't want to go talk to this person about their issue when I'm dealing with this huge hurricane, whirlwind, tornado, everything, earthquake that's just falling apart. I'm like, I really don't want to go do that. And I just kept feeling God say, like, I want you to go. I need you to go. I need you to go. And I was like, fine. So I literally forced myself to go. I'd end up showing up, talking to those people, and listening to what they had to say. When I got done listening to what they had to say, every time, it was so crazy. It was so crazy how God does it. Every single time, what I was walking through with God in that week, what he had been teaching me throughout that time, was the answer that those people needed. And if I hadn't been obedient, God would have worked a way to do it anyways for them, encourage them, but God wouldn't have used me, and I wouldn't have been able to see that side of God that I got to see if I would have just sat here and focused on my liver shot. But I didn't. I made myself go out there, and I remember every time after I met with those people, I always felt like 10 times better. I felt so happy. I remember getting in the car multiple times and just crying, because I was like, God, thank you so much for the opportunity to like get to minister again, because ministry isn't just done from the pulpit, man. It's not just done from the stage. It's done in every stage in your life. It's done in the grocery stores. It's done at the Pluckers, you know what I mean? Which is a wing bar for anybody who doesn't know. Really good wings. Terrible service. Really good wings though. It's done everywhere that you go, and I was just so happy that I was able to get to minister again. And then I started hearing his voice more clearly again, and I started getting to pray for people and prophesy over them. Prophesy, another word for telling them, I know what you're going through. God told me, I have no idea who this person is, but I know what you're going through, and this is what God wanted me to tell you. And then those people would just be super encouraged by that. And I hadn't been able to do that in a long time, not because God wasn't using me or didn't want to, but because I just wasn't available to it. And so he just started literally using me in all of these ways. I got to speak for the first time in like 8 years, which I never thought that I'd get to speak again. And I'm helping our youth ministry in ways that I didn't think I'd get to help out again, man. And honestly, just the simple fact that I get to go and be in pre-service prayer and talk to kids and pray for kids and talk with kids and help with ideas, to me is more than enough. Like, I love that. And to a lot of you guys, that may not seem like much, but to me, someone who felt like that was so far gone, but now it's like right here and I'm holding it and I'm walking in it. It's everything, because it shows me that God's been working on everything on my behalf while I was so focused on everything else. And I think that's the thing that made me fall more in love with God than ever before, is that at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how many times I fail him. It doesn't matter how many times I turn away. He's always there, man. He's got your back. He's literally got your back every step of the way. So the reason I wanted to make this video, man, is just to kind of give you guys a little bit more of a perspective into my life and tell you guys just a little bit about my story. There's a whole lot more. If you guys know me, you see me, you want to get to know more about it, then pull me aside. I'd love to get a coffee and chat with you guys. But all that to say, man, 2019, it was the worst year of my life. But it was also the best year of my life. And it didn't create a new me, but it created a better me. And 2020 is going to create an even better me. And I just want to encourage you, whatever you went through in 2019, don't forget it. Never forget it. Embrace it. Don't let it hold you down, but keep moving forward in it at the end of the day and overcome it. And even though you may have taken a liver shot or two, get back up, catch your breath, and finish the rounds, because 2020, it's filled with a lot of good things, man. For me, for you, for anybody who wants to go out there and grab them. And so just hold on to the Lord, hold on to the Holy Spirit. He's literally your strength. And do not feel discouraged. And if you do feel discouraged, take it to God, and I guarantee you, you're going to feel encouraged again. And honestly, guys, I think that's all I have to say. I hope that was good for you guys. Honestly, it was just good talking about it. It was good letting you guys in on a little bit of other parts that you may have not known about me. Hopefully, it'll create a platform for you guys to be able to like approach me and maybe share your weaknesses, and I'll share my weaknesses, and we can just walk through things together. But that's it, man. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys so much. Everyone who tunes into this podcast, it makes a big difference. To me, I don't really like to get caught up on the views or anything like that, but it just means a lot that there's people out there that believe in what you're doing and take the time to really invest into it. So I appreciate you guys. That's enough for me, man. Like, subscribe, share, whatever, all that stuff. God bless you. Happy New Year's. 2020 is going to be a year that you will never forget. So get ready for it.